Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Larry Jackson, and we're having another session of Technical Tuesday here at Hanover Architectural Products. Today's session is a session called a Project of Distinction, and we're going to be talking about the Vanderbilt University project in Nashville called the West End Neighborhood. This project was installed in 2019, and they used about 60,000 square feet of Hanover permeable pavers on this job. There were several different colors and textures used on the project. And today we're very fortunate to have Brian Phelps with us. He's a senior partner at Hawkins Partners, who were the landscape architects on this. Welcome, Brian. We appreciate you coming.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having us. And
yeah, we want to talk, start off a little bit and ask you some questions, about the project. But most importantly, to start off with is, what was the concept here, and what were you trying to achieve, and what was Vanderbilt looking for when they hired you to do this?
I prepared some background information that I'll share my screen here, but the project itself came out of an extensive effort by the university to master plan kind of the future of Vanderbilt and where it was heading. And it was called FutureVU. Clark Pelly was the master planning team that did it, and Reed Hildebrand was the landscape architects that were involved in that. And they produced this master plan that you see here and identified various areas for improvements and very specific. And part of and apologize for the sirens, so one of the things that came out of it was the idea of these residential colleges, and that became a really important aspect as they pursued that. And one of the earlier ones that was completed during this project was the RC, what they call the RCA, which is now the Nicholas Zeppos Residential College there on the corner. And from that, the FutureVU goals, I pulled a few of them that were really related to specifically to this area, but also Pavers in general. The idea that this neighborhood used to be all parking lots and roadways, and FutureVU wanted to see a reduction in the amount of cars and parking within the interior of the campus and push those to the outside. They really wanted to play up and improve the arboretum that was on the campus as well. And just sustainability was a big factor. And you can see in some of these photos just kind of what the previous existing conditions were, kind of your typical streets and parking lots, a lot of overhead utilities. And so as they were looking at developing this first RCA and then RCB and RCC, that it became clear that it was being disconnected from the campus, and that it was important for these pedestrian access and bicycle access, which was a high priority within the FutureVU principles and goals, to provide those connections into what they called the central neighborhood to the south of this page, and the historic campus to the right. And then you had the athletics district here on the left-hand side. And then just improving ADA and accessibility and just the quality of life, even just within this district, was really a key factor of that. And so as sustainability aspects, looking at the need to reduce the pervious area, that was one of the big goals, while still maintaining limited vehicular access. That was really important to be able to provide fire access to all these. This was essentially their Greek row area of the campus, but to provide access for temporary load-in for when students arrived and left, for events. So we still had a vehicular component, but it was very limited, but still needed to withstand that. But primarily this was for pedestrians, and then taking those larger areas on the campus and making those into some really interesting outdoor spaces that could be used by the students as before that. But as as we started getting into the paving, we started looking at that we still had these very large vehicular ways that we needed to break down the scale of those and still maintain that fire access width. So we started looking at this idea of this, when you're on the campus seeing these large arboretum, these trees, you have this dappled shade, this organic quality to the campus that we wanted to really infuse into the paving pattern. And this is an early study, a part of that. And in addition to that, we wanted to kind of break up into various zones so to kind of understand where you were on these pathways, and then just providing that accessibility throughout that. Now, as we also, these large areas, I mean, hand laying and doing all this was really an expensive when we first set out, how the delicacy of that. So we started looking at this, the mechanically laid to help improve the cost of this, but we wanted to still break up those large areas that you typically get. So we utilized the herringbone pattern, and then had at different points like hand removing some of those pavers, so that then we could come in what was also becoming known as the sprinkled pattern to help give it that dappled shade, that organic quality to it, and breaking up that single field of color. Of course, RSI, I mean, these are just some of the kind of conceptually as we worked through those, and using the pavers, different finishes and things to delineate these zones subtly as a part of that. And then because it was the sustainability is a big aspect, we really had to pay attention to the color for the SRI values that we went through. And this is just kind of showing, generally, as we looked at laying out these pavers, a lot of the qualities that we needed to be met as a part of that. And then even where we have what they call this walk and roll that goes around the campus, that's a primary bicycle and pedestrian route around the campus, that at those intersections, even looking at how do we use the detectable warning pavers and paving patterns to delineate that. And you can see here's one of these intersections that you see where we use the detectable warning to help alert people that they were coming into these intersections, particularly that were focused on bicycles and pedestrians aspect of that.
One of the things I want to point out, Brian, in your photographs here is you have no drains in the surface of the paver system, which definitely helps with aesthetics. You don't have to worry about, you're designing this beautiful project and then you don't have to have any surface drains because, of course, permeability, the water goes down through the joints.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did have some overflow to just in the landscape areas but yes, it was really important to us to try to, as best we could, to control where those drains were in the pavement
Now, does Nashville or the state of Tennessee have any requirements as far as non-pervious areas, or a certain percentage of it to be that, or was this just something that Hawkins and Vanderbilt come up with because you wanted to create, and I'm sure this had a LEED certification on it as well?
Well, there is I think at first, that Vanderbilt, that was really important in the sustainability aspect. And so permeable or pervious pavers were very important to them at the outset. But there is there's a water quality and water management requirements within the city. It's not necessarily required to be pervious, but it's one of the tools that are often used, and pavers are usually one of those first tools that are utilized in particularly large areas of pavement on a site, because they do get the credit for those to improve that water quality and maintain that first 1 inch on the site. So,
okay.
So yes, it's not necessarily you have to have it, but it is ultimately a tool that is used that often ends up working out that it has to use it to meet the standards.
The colors that you used in this is certainly unique in itself. Can you explain to us how you got the patterns, or where the idea come from, the patterns that you have in this system?
So again, the kind of the more of the organic quality that we were going for, and the design kind of evolved out of this idea that of the mechanically laid pavers. How can we use that cost-effective system but still provide a customization to that? So there was a lot of back and forth of like, how much can we hand remove to put it within that. So ultimately that it kind of derived out of those two concepts of or goals that we were trying to meet as a part of that. And then we also, as I also alluded to earlier, as we were defining areas with various different types of paving patterns, as you see in, like, for example, here where you have a larger paver that delineates these waysides that we had throughout the West End neighborhood.
How important was it having the different textures and colors available to you through Hanover to create your designs? I know we often, discuss the heavier textures compared to the lighter textures, and it really creates a unique look. And we also had to look at, like what you were talking about earlier, SRI values, because just changing the texture can change the SRI value. So how important is that to you as a designer to use different textures?
I mean, we really have been using that technique probably the last few years of seeing that kind of subtle changes, particularly as how light reacts with it, but also having a large palette of colors to choose from is always very helpful to providing that richness and subtlety, and having a variety of colors and finishes that meet that SRI standard that we often are needing to meet is extremely helpful to our work.
Good. Yeah, and I have several samples here, but the size that you guys used down there on this project was basically a 4.5 by 9 unit like this. But if you're looking at, we have two different finishes. I think you used was a natural finish and a Tudor finish. And I just try to show this up to give the viewers an example of how changing the texture changes the colors completely. So these are both the same colors, just different textures on the products.
Yeah, and it is nice how, as you put those together in those mixes, seeing how the light hits it and just the qualities that you get by having that mix. It really does add a richness to it.
Great. And you also have some, I know that this area is mostly pedestrian, but you do have it opened up at times for vehicular applications. I think you have some bollards for, I guess, for when the students move into their dorms.
Yes, and for fire access. So this is the Kensington place that was one of those streets that was replaced, but you can see here what it was before. But yeah, we had to maintain the bollard or the access, but limited it with the use of bollards as a part of that. So you do see how that was controlled.
Yeah, so a combination of a 3-inch thick paver as well as a herringbone pattern creates a nice strong interlock, which provides for both pedestrian and vehicular loading conditions. Yeah. So, well, I want to thank you for joining us today, Brian. We appreciate your insight, give some people a little idea of what went on in this project, and we appreciate Hawkins' continued support of Hanover Pavers. And we want to ask everyone, if you have any questions concerning our products, to give us a shout. You can contact us at our website here at hanoverpavers.com, and there's you can see all of our products listed there. And if you have any questions, the contact information is on our website. So again, thank you for joining us today, Brian, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right, bye.
Bye.